Welcome to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast, your personal, professional, career development podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dr. Dave Peltz, and along with me, as always, my esteemed colleague, Dr. Joe Hamlet. How are you doing today, Dr. Joe?
I'm doing pretty good, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm doing most excellent, Dr. Joe. How are you doing?
We don't want to continue this.
So, we'd like to welcome our viewers and listeners back for another episode. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're returning, thank you for your support. If you're listening, you will not know this. If you're viewing, you probably do. You'll see that we have another guest speaker. We have Krista Anderson with us today. How are you doing today, Krista?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Can you take a couple minutes and just tell the audience and our listeners a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure, I'd love to. I am a military spouse, and actually spouse of a retiree now, almost 4 years. And I'm also a Gold Star spouse. So my first husband was wounded in Afghanistan in 2013 and passed away from those wounds about 5 days later. I'm the mom of two incredible boys. At the time, they were 1 and 3, and they're now 13 and 15. Just incredible young men. I'm so proud of them. And I am the co-founder of the Unquiet Professional, which is my late husband's nickname. So, Staff Sergeant Michael Harrison Simpson was a Green Beret and very proud to be one, followed in his brother and his father's footsteps, and just wanted everybody to know that, including me, every morning. How's it feel to be married to a big bad Green Beret? It felt great.
Yeah, I would feel safer at night. I know that.
Exactly. Mike was an 18 Bravo, so he was a weapons specialist, and his language was Tagalog, which is what they speak in the
Wow.
Philippines. And so we were stationed out at First Special Forces Group out at Joint Base Lewis McChord when he deployed with his company there. And the community was just so absolutely incredible. I mean, they behaved like family, right? I mean, you kind of choose your family when you're in the military, and which is wonderful. And they certainly behaved that way because they came to our aid immediately, and the organizations are just outstanding, and they continue to be there for us and support our family to this day, 12 years later. So,
I'm going to
um,
pause for a second. Let's go
yeah.
ahead and introduce the topic because we're starting to get a little bit deep, and this will be a good segue. The topic
Okay.
for today's podcast is planning for the unexpected. So, this is an important topic. Uh, when I met with Krista, we discussed, what drives her, what she's passionate about, and she explained this to me, and I shared this with Joe, and it left Joe and I kind of scratching our heads, like, wow, are we planning for the unexpected? And the answer is maybe a little bit, but probably no at this
Not
time.
enough.
So
Right.
not enough. So Krista's going to help us all out with that and understanding what does planning for the unexpected really mean and involve. So Krista, go ahead and tell us what does planning for the unexpected involve and entail?
I think to me, it means understanding the resources that are available to you, benefits and resources that are available to you before you need them. It also means sometimes in my classes, I've had couples come up with, and one who does the household maintenance, will stand there, and the other spouse will have a water gun, and they will spray them with this water gun till the person that does the maintenance on the house can explain where the main water shutoff valve is. What if a pipe bursts in your house? Do you know how to turn it off? Does your spouse know how to turn it off? You know, um, and of course, when I think back to when Mike passed away, thankfully he did a lot of things that I didn't know about. In special operations, we have something called a pause packet, which is a personal affairs worksheet. It is not a legal document, but he wrote in there he wanted to be buried in Arlington National Cemetery, and he wanted this particular scripture, and he wanted these people to be pallbearers. And so thankfully I had that from him, but not many people do. And so, yes, we need to know where the water valve is and, and all the things having to do with our car, maybe, yeah, how to jump the battery in your car. But I think that most importantly, I think to me is having that conversation of last wishes with your loved ones, because when it's too late, it's too late. You'll never get
Right.
those answers. And so I can guess why Mike wanted to be buried in Arlington National Cemetery, but I'll never hear it from him. And I don't want people to have to find that out the hard way. And so I kind of walk them through it. I give them a binder, and it's not all death, right? I do often say, you know, especially when I'm talking to spouses, I'm like, all right, text your spouse, text your service member right now and tell them it's date night. We're gonna open a nice bottle of wine or bourbon or grape juice, whatever you want, and we're gonna plan our funeral and it's gonna be fun. They're like, really? And I hear back, it worked. It worked.
Wow.
You just have to get in the mindset of it.
Right.
My my sweet husband, I'm remarried to an incredible man and who's a retired Green Beret as well. And we'll be at a funeral and I'll go, "Ooh, I really like that." And he's like, "Okay, we can write it down."
I'm
Wow.
finding it very interesting your approach and perspective because you're smiling and you're laughing, not because it's humorous, but because sometimes you have to make a difficult situation a little bit lighter so it can be palatable and
Always.
really and we were just talking offline and before the podcast and my wife recently retired, and I spent the last 6 months trying to gather up all my sticky notes and notepads and whatever else with all the passwords and the account numbers and logins and it can be overwhelming. I mean, it took some effort to locate these and find the right people to talk to, all the way down to our utilities, who our utility company is, what's the website, what's the account number, what's the login for simple things like that. And it's not so much we were preparing for a death to occur, but it was what if one of us winds up in the hospital? How do I
Mhm.
do? My wife pays the bills through auto pay. How do I do that?
Right.
I mean, I'd have to do it from her devices, or at least have the information available so I could log on to my device. So, um, tell us a little bit more about the preparation aspect, what
Mhm.
goes into it.
Well, username and passwords is key because I remember Mike had a credit card and it was through a bank, a local bank, and I went in to close the credit card and they said, well, you need the death certificate. I'm like, I don't have that yet. Can we just close it? It was a $4 balance. I paid it. And I said, well, if you had his username and password, you could just close it online. I was like,
Hmm.
Mm.
but I don't. And so that's key.
Hmm.
We use a cloud-based program that we have, there's folders, right? Family, household, our boys have scholarships, and so everything is in there. I mean, if I passed away, how would Gus make sure that the boys' scholarships were being applied for? He would actually have to file for guardianship over them, over their estate, and then apply for their survivor benefits again, because if I died, their survivor benefits would stop because I'm their fiduciary,
Mm.
right?
Wow.
The other thing is if you're, um, people don't even think about this, but I'll never forget this one widow that is a dear friend of mine. She said, Krista, I went to Dover with $40 in my pocket because I was locked out of our account because me and Phil just used the same username and password to our bank account. And when he died, they were notified and they froze everything.
Oh,
Wow.
wow. Wow.
He wasn't necessarily on the accounts. But I mean, she's like, well, my husband takes care of it. I don't need to be. You trust each other. It's not like you don't trust them. That's just something that they take care of, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so make sure you have your own login information. And if you're not on the actual accounts, make sure that you're a POD is called pay upon death. And then you don't have to go into, probate or anything. You want to avoid any of that stuff. Um, there's so many little things and different circumstances for every family, but in working with casualty support over the last decade, I've run into a lot of people that have those situations and don't even know who the mortgage is paid to, and all the bills have stopped being paid because they're paid out of that one account automatically,
Mhm.
and now that account is frozen because the owner has passed away. And so if you I'm not going to say it's going to take it. I mean, it might take a day, right? Sometimes you need to just kind of schedule maybe a couple hours every week to just go through everything. And I have to say, how are they going to know that my FabFitFun account, until the subscription comes to the door and my husband's like, what do I need all this stuff for?
Right.
How do I cancel this? You know?
Yeah, how's my wife cancel my Xbox Ultimate account,
Right.
right? Keep getting
Exactly.
keep getting billed for this thing. I don't even know what it is.
I mean, those are the things that afterwards we're going to be like, oh, I can't believe he played. Now I have to keep paying for that video game, right? But just think of, and this is how I look at it. If um, if my husband and I, or even, and I approach this with a lot of times when I'm speaking with military families, hey, do you want to go on vacation? Do you want your parents or your in-laws to take care of your kids for a week? Do you want to have a stress-free week to not have to deal with anything? Well, you would make sure everything is in order and they knew how to do stuff
Right.
in the house if there was an emergency or anything. I mean, I remember the first time, and it was my mother that was watching my oldest son. And I can guarantee you most parents or at least moms listening to this have done this. I had like a 3-page, document typed up, printed with, and this is when he sleeps, and this is when he eats, and this is when he goes to the bathroom, and this is when he, right? We're so particular about those things. And so think of that. If someone needed to come into your home and take care of your children, or just simply just take care of your home, what would they need to know? Right? And those usernames and passwords are key. This is the water bill. This is, where things are located. These are our assets. If anybody, I'm sure a lot of your listeners have had to close up family estates, whether it's their parents have passed away or aunts or uncles, and they've helped try to navigate that. And I mean, it's a lot of work if you just have to search for it.
Well, you brought up something earlier about like credit cards and things like that. If you wanted to cancel those accounts, um, so so if you're not on that account, but you do have the information on how to access it, would you be allowed to close out the account if that the your spouse or your significant other is not present, or if they've passed away? Are you still allowed to do that?
I mean, that's what the bank told me. If you had his username and password, you could just go online and
Okay.
close it. Because essentially you're acting as them. Now, I don't think anybody's going to complain that it's closed, right? And especially if they needed the death certificate, you could provide it later. But
Okay.
you also want to be very careful because the obituary is going to be in the paper. And as much as I would like to tell you that everybody in the world is wonderful and and nobody has, bad intentions, people look at the obituaries and then they steal those people's identity.
Mm.
And so you also want to make sure that the credit agencies are notified. But here's also something that I learned and didn't even think of at the time from another friend of mine who's a widow. She said, we've been using the same credit card, and it was my husband's. We've been using the same credit card and accrued all of these points for years and years and years. And we've had this credit card for 20, 25 years. And now they shut it off, and she's a stay-at-home mom and couldn't get that credit. They wouldn't transfer the points. I
Wow.
mean, that's
Wow.
something that I'd love to fight for, right?
Right.
I mean, that's definitely on my list, right? But so, I know people that keep airline accounts open. That's not
Right.
anybody, right? And you're using their point. But if you have the username and password, right, and you're just using their points. Now, is that called, I can't tell you, I'm not an attorney. Is that called stolen identity? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think anybody would be, be worried about that.
Right.
But also think about that as, my husband and I do. Now we each have our own separate accounts for credit cards because here's the thing too. We were looking at a house and bid on a house that was bigger. We live in a townhome now in Virginia. And I said, well, wait a minute. The mortgage is going to be a lot more. And yes, we can afford it today. But if you pass away, there goes your pension, military pension, your military disability, and your income through your job now. So three incomes that are coming into the house would be gone. And I
Right.
would be able to afford the mortgage on my own. And I'm a volunteer for the nonprofit and I do have an LLC, but it's not a continuous, we talked about it earlier, work when I want to work,
Right. Yeah.
which is beautiful because I take care of our children. And, but what would that mean? I'd be in this big house. I wouldn't be able to pay the mortgage. Okay, so maybe I sell it and buy a new house. Well, I sell it, but can I get a mortgage if I'm unemployed?
Mm. Wow.
So when you're looking at everything, and so then we talked to our financial advisor and he said, okay, Gus has life insurance. You could take that, invest that with me. I could give you a stipend every month to pay for the mortgage, right? We could figure it out. But not everybody has that.
Right. Right.
And so you want to also make sure that you're setting your family up for success. If you're out of the picture, and and same thing, if I was out of the picture, would he, I mean, he could afford everything without me. He'll be fine. You know. But, I mean, look at that. If you had to do it on your own, would you be able to? And if not, let's talk about how you could set something up to make sure that it is possible. Whether
Right.
it's, okay, let me make sure that I get a life insurance policy that covers either the full mortgage, the full debt, or that we can invest and pull from.
You know,
And I'm not a
nope.
financial advisor either. This is just all
Right,
what I've
right,
learned,
Right.
right?
Right.
right.
Yeah.
And something that I learned not well, probably within the last couple of years is that my wife and I we have our joint banking account. She's primary, but the credit card that she has on there, she had before we got married.
Yep.
So, sh according to this bank, she cannot add me. She can add me as a second card holder, but not someone who can close the account
That's
because
blank.
she's the originator of it. We didn't apply jointly. In order to do
Yep.
that, we'd have to close that account and apply to a joint account
Yep.
for credit card
Mhm.
holding. So I think there's a lot of interesting things out there that I think people need to become aware of, especially with credit card and debit card use, and retirement accounts and 401s and 403bs or whatever the different accounts are, and how to access them and how to get the permission set up so you can talk on their behalf if
Mhm.
something does happen.
Yeah, they'll
Because
have special power of attorneys likely, right?
yeah,
A
well,
general power
I
of
hope
attorney is
so. I
great,
mean,
but likely you
yeah.
need a special one.
Yeah, and we're finding out that she has to give permission for me to talk on her behalf,
Hmm.
whether she's present in the room or not. With all of her accounts, and that could create some potential challenges if one of us is hospitalized
Hmm.
and we can't speak on the phone to identify ourselves or can't remember all that information because I write my stuff down because I don't memorize all 5 million you know accounts that I have with all, Google and
No.
Microsoft and, I don't know, whatever else is out there, insurance and stuff like that. So, you know, how do we prepare for ourselves? And I like the idea that you said, put a binder together, get that
Yeah.
cloud
That's,
storage. And you mentioned earlier offline that a lot of these services are free. You can get there you go.
oh,
I mean,
wow.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I notice it's only like 1 or 2 pages, right?
Oh gosh. And this is not mine. This is the empty one. Um, this is actually on our website. This piece, it's a PDF, and it's just an example of how you can get started, what you might need. You can download it and type things in, or download it and print it. But it's really protecting your family's legacy. There's some instructions. There's also reflective questions, thinking back, what major events affected your view of life? Who's the
I'm
biggest influence in your life?
Chris, I'm glad you're providing that because that was going to be my next question was you're throwing out a lot of stuff that we need to consider, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh my goodness, things I hadn't considered, and so I'm glad there's at least a starting point for people to start this process because, like I can't remember if I said it before we got on the air or after podcast started, but yeah, me and the wife have started these conversations, and so I'm glad there's at least a starting point for people to, kind of some steps to get started, get going, get yourself that momentum to understand this process because it is a lot bigger. Just with this conversation that you've been having with us, it's a lot bigger things that I hadn't considered, and now I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So I
Don't
think a
sweat
lot
it.
of us are probably saying the same thing. If people are listening or watching this podcast, they're like, that's something I didn't consider. So even, like Dave just said, with his wife originally opening a card and him not being added, so he can't close the account. So I mean, I'm thinking about that right now because my wife has done that as well. So just those types of things that you don't really think about or consider, or even like you just talked about the mortgage, if something happened, how would you be able to get a mortgage, a loan, because you're not full time, you know, provider all this time. So those are yeah things that people a lot of times don't think about. So I'm glad that you have somewhere for people to start or at least get going
Yeah.
in this process.
Yeah, and I was thinking, when you're talking about kids, what about like I have some fish? What about our dogs? What is their schedule? You got a
Yeah.
pool. Who's cleaning the pool? Do you have a service or are you doing it yourself? How often do you have to check the chemicals and that sort of thing?
Yes.
There's lots of little things. Where are your family valuables? Are they locked in a safe? What's the combination? What are the high value items? So someone that comes in and just goes, "Oh, this is a piece of garbage," and someone's like, "Oh, I just became a millionaire off that lottery ticket that you threw away."
Right.
It's like I my mind is starting to think about
Or is
all
there a
these
safety
different things.
deposit box that's going to
Yeah,
sit there
Yep.
and
Yep.
rot?
Yep.
yeah. Or do you
Nobody
have
knows about. Yeah.
or what we've seen so much, what we've seen since the pandemic is there were self storages out there, but it seems like since the pandemic, the number's gone like tenfold. I mean, I've seen neighbors' views be ruined by it wasn't there was this beautiful area as you're thinking, oh, what kind of shops are going to go there? Oh, well, there's a two-story storage unit. Oh, wait, now there's two, now there's three, and the
Yeah.
people that live there their views are completely ruined and now they have all this reflective metal bringing heat into their living rooms and it's like it sounds silly but I mean these are the little things that we have to think about too, not just the big things. What are the most important items in the house to you that you want to pass on, that if you needed emergency funds, what could you cash in on and liquidate?
Right. Absolutely. So I'm going to ask the question right here. Do either of you have a will? I mean, where's your fish going to go to, Dave?
Yeah, my son is listed as second beneficiary on a lot of things. But yeah, there's a few things that I need to get stepped up on. And
Yeah,
I've
the
been offered
same.
assistance. I've been offered assistance, and I need to be a little bit more proactive about that.
Yeah,
So
I'm,
for
I'm
your
very
will,
similar. We do have beneficiary established, benefactor established with my wife, but like Dave said, beyond that, we haven't really done that. So that's the part I think we need to improve upon or change to make better.
Yeah,
Um,
and my grandfather passed away in 2015, and I saw what a mess that was. And he had all of his stuff together, and he had a financial advisor, and everything was in place, and it became a big mess over several years.
Mhm.
And I think there could have been things he could have done to simplify those things. And he had everything in order and he'd review it like once a year. But I think it's something that it's not just Gen X and Gen Y and boomers need to be concerned about. It's the YZ alpha generations too, because I was looking at the news the other day, and it's how many young people that are early career that their lives are getting cut short because of an automobile accident or something tragic. And it's like, how do those people work through it? So this podcast is really for everyone, all of our listeners, you know.
Well, and if you have adult children, right? And of course, they're not thinking about this. They're in their, if they're off on their own, they're in their early 20s likely. But that even more, if they're single, because if something happened, or I mean, even if they said, oh, well, we have to get this particular surgery and I'm going to be incapacitated for X period of time, you're going to want to know. I mean, we, of course, work with our wounded warriors. And I think of the people that are, now have traumatic brain injuries and such
Mhm.
that their parents are coming in to help them with things. I mean, they don't remember what their account number is for their, you
Yeah.
know, for their water or electric bill or, so
They
many.
usually wait till they get the late notice reminding them for the fourth time that they need to pay it.
Right. Which is interesting because that's one thing I think if you are the person that's coming in to help with something like that, check the mail, right?
Oh,
Check the mail
there's
because
another. Yeah.
if there's a late notice, then okay, this bill needs to be paid. Okay, we can go in there and pay that. But imagine if, you know, one of our wounded warriors said, "Okay, mom, dad, here's the binder, or I have a binder, and this is where to get it." And all of the accounts were listed in there, and they're able to just go in there and help their kid pay the bills in their house or their apartment. And so, or where do they bank? You may not be talking about that with your parents. Did you start a TSP or a 401k? You may not be talking about that with your parents and your family. And if you don't have a spouse, then who knows any of this information?
So
And you
Krista,
certainly don't want it
we're
to go to
we're down
waste.
to our last exactly. We're down to our last couple minutes. What would you like to leave our audience with? What are a couple of takeaways that you'd like to leave them with that they can utilize or have a starting point from?
Well, I think so. We've just started to look into and discuss. If you're military and you need a will and powers of attorney, you can go to the JAG, the Judge Advocate, on base. They can serve our active duty, guard, survivors, and retirees. Now, each one will depend, right, on how their office is staffed. If they're
Mhm.
short-staffed, they may have to focus on the active duty. But likely you can find another base maybe that is able to help you. We also have started to look into freewill.com, even if it's just your basic will, as long as it's got something in there. I think, it's a good start, definitely. Look at your bank accounts and make sure that there's somebody on there as the beneficiary or POD, pay upon death. That needs to help. Do not leave, I wish my girlfriend who's an attorney was on here, because she's like, do not leave money to minor children because whoever their guardian is
Mhm.
can spend it.
Yeah.
And so they may not do it the way that you want them to do it. And it's so if you need to start a trust, if there's minor children, start a trust, which I will tell you, I have not started yet. We're in the process of working all of that out, to make sure that, everything is in a trust for our boys. And I would say that just do a little bit at a time, start a binder, put everything in it, make sure everything is in one place. And that's why I say and you can go to our website, theunquietprofessional.org.
Okay.
And under the resources, it'll say estate planning guide, and you can click on that and you can download that. You can type into it, fill it out yourself, print it, whatever, it's yours to keep. We want people to, and there's more advanced ones out there as well, but that might be a good start because a lot of people are like, I'm not even sure what people would need to know. And so I think that just identifying or thinking about when the bills come in, if you don't have paperless billing, just take one of them, throw them in that binder. Because if I have to go in, I can take out that bill and go, okay, here's the account number, right? Oh, this is the water company, and here's the account number. So, not me personally, likely, but
Well,
Do you have any questions for me?
no, I think this has been absolutely insightful. I'm feeling
Yes.
some personal guilt, thinking, wow, I should have taken care of a lot of this decades
Yes.
ago.
Yeah.
Why did I miss
I
this
mean, I kind of
ball?
meant it. I meant it a little bit.
It's like, wow, I
I,
really dropped this ball a long time ago. So, thank you for being on the show, on the
Yes.
podcast.
Yeah.
Joe, any final comments?
No, I echo what Dave just said. I feel a little guilty as well, but at least I know you've got some resources for me that I'm going to immediately go download and
Mhm.
start filling that information out. And I'm going to take advantage of this information you just provided. You talked about the JAG, me being a retiree. I will definitely look at our situation in our local base here and see if there's an option for us to go in there. So I do appreciate you sharing all this information with us as well as our audience. So thanks for being here and thanks for everything you're doing.
Thank you. There's also so many other resources out there that organizations that can help. The aid societies, like for you, Air Force Aid Society, as a retiree, you have access to loans, grants, or a combination of both. If the hot water tank blew and you said, oh my goodness, we weren't expecting this and we didn't save for this, or whatever the situation. And I think that for non-military people, look out there. There's the Red Cross, the United Way. There's so many organizations within the communities as well that can assist in an emergency. And I mean, everybody goes through something. Don't ever feel bad that all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation that you can't control, right? I mean, sometimes when it rains, it pours, right? The car breaks, so does the, AC and so on and so forth. And so there are resources out there to help as well. And sometimes Google or ChatGPT is your best friend.
Thank you very much for that, Krista. We really enjoyed having you on the podcast. I think our viewers and listeners are going to find this very valuable. Love the
Yes.
piece about having the free tool that people can go to on your site, the Unquiet Professional. So, for our viewers and listeners, thank you for attending and listening and watching another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast, the personal, professional, and career development podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with Krista Anderson, in any way, shape, or form, we'll have whatever she makes available to us in the description so you can reach out to her and have some other conversations if you'd like to. So, with that, thank you again and keep on being your not so ordinary you.